So imagine for a second that you are just sitting at your desk.
Okay.
You're looking at a stock chart. It is a completely standard Tuesday morning.
Right. Totally normal day.
The coffee is lukewarm. The market is humming along, ticking up a fraction of a percent here and there. And then suddenly a massive red line just drops off a cliff.
A total free fall.
Exactly. And we aren't talking about a little dip. We are talking about $285 billion evaporating.
Yeah.
Just gone.
It is a number that is genuinely hard to even wrap your head around.
It really is.
I mean, to put that in perspective, that is roughly the entire GDP of a country like Finland.
Wow.
Or Portugal.
Oh.
Just vanishing from the ledger in a matter of hours.
And usually when we see a crash like that, there is a smoking gun.
Right, a specific trigger.
Like a war broke out or a pandemic started or maybe the global oil supply got cut off. But this $285 billion sell-off didn't hit the whole market.
No, it was highly localized.
It hit a very specific, very confident sector. Software, legal tech, and financial services stocks.
The safe stocks. I mean, the ones that have basically been printing money for the last decade.
Right. And it was triggered, largely, by a single announcement. So my question to you to start this whole thing off is, why?
Why the panic?
Yeah, why did the market suddenly freak out over a press release?
You know, it feels like the market suddenly woke up from a nap and realized the tectonic plates had entirely shifted while it was sleeping.
And that is exactly what we are digging into today, because usually when we see a market correction, we just think, okay, numbers go up, numbers go down, buy the dip.
The standard cycle.
But this was not a correction. This was the market aggressively pricing in a fundamental change in how work is going to get done from this point forward.
I like to think of it as the difference between a weather report and a climate shift.
Oh, I like that.
A bad earnings report is just weather. It rains, then it clears up. This is the market acknowledging a permanent climate shift in the corporate world.
The environment has completely changed.
Exactly. And some of the animals, specifically the software companies charging per seat, they might not actually be built to survive in this new climate.
And the catalyst for all of this chaos was a partnership between the titan of Wall Street, Goldman Sachs, and the AI research lab, Anthropic.
Which, on the surface, it just sounds like another corporate press release, doesn't it?
Yeah, bank partners with tech firm.
We see those 5 times a week. Usually just means they bought a massive enterprise license for Microsoft Teams or something.
Right, exploring synergies, that whole thing.
Exactly. But when you look at what actually happened here, where they built, how they built it, and specifically how the market reacted it, is a massive signal.
It's a flare gun going off.
Yes.
And that is the mission for this deep dive. We are not here to just give you a quick news update.
No, definitely not.
If you are listening to this and you work in a job that involves rules, data, compliance, or really what we broadly call knowledge work, this is a warning signal.
A friendly one, hopefully. I mean, we want to be the lighthouse here, not the rocks.
Exactly. We are working off some incredibly dense source material today, specifically from the AI Frankly lab.
Great source.
Yeah. They build themselves as a lab, not a newsletter, and you can really tell by the depth of their reporting on this Goldman Sachs story.
They get right into the weeds.
We are going to decode the corporate speak, explain why your boss is probably about to change their entire strategy because of this, and we're going to give you a practical exercise to make sure you actually survive this shift.
The phrase to keep in mind for this whole discussion, and this comes directly from that source material, is control the input, control the output.
Control the input, control the output. I love that. So let's get into the receipts.
Let's do it.
Because usually these banking tech announcements are super fluffy. But you're telling me this wasn't just Goldman buying a fancy subscription to a chatbot?
Not at all. And this is the crucial distinction that I think the market picked up on immediately, even if the general public kind of missed it.
Okay, break that down.
This was not a standard software as a service purchase. Usually a bank buys a license. They say, we need 10,000 seats of Salesforce.
Right. They write a massive check.
They write the check, and they get a login page. This was a joint development effort. That implies a completely different level of corporate commitment.
Hang on, though. Joint development usually just means they hired some expensive consultants for a few months.
Normally, yes.
Why would Goldman Sachs, a bank that notoriously likes to keep things highly proprietary, invite a tech company straight into their kitchen?
Because they weren't just installing software. They were building an entirely new type of worker.
Okay.
Goldman Sachs didn't just buy a login. They physically embedded Anthropic engineers inside the bank.
Inside the bank?
For 6 solid months.
Wow. Let's just pause on that for a second. You have the people who built the AI model, the actual architects of the brain sitting right next to the investment bankers and the compliance officers.
Breathing the same air. And they weren't just playing around with prompts or testing out chat window.
What were they actually doing?
They were building digital coworkers. Specifically, AI agents designed to handle accounting, compliance, and trade reconciliation.
Okay, those are the heavy-hitting parts of banking.
Absolutely.
That is not, hey, write me a marketing email for a summer networking mixer.
This is the actual plumbing of the global financial system. This is the unglamorous, high-risk, incredibly rule-heavy work that keeps the bank from getting fined billions by the SEC.
And the origin story here is fascinating because, from what the sources say, it didn't even start with accounting.
It didn't. It started with code.
With software developers.
Exactly. Goldman's chief information officer, Marco Argondenti, admitted they actually began by testing an AI coding assistant called Devin.
Okay, so helping their internal developers write software faster.
Right.
Which is pretty standard these days. Every tech company on Earth is doing that.
They are. But here is the leap in logic that makes this specific story so important. Argenti realized that if a large language model can reason through complex code, which is essentially just a set of strict logic rules, then it can also reason through a reconciliation rulebook.
Because a financial regulation is basically just code written in legalese.
Precisely. Think about it. Code is, if variable A is greater than 10, execute function B.
Right.
Financial compliance is, if transaction amount is greater than $10,000, execute suspicious activity report. It's the exact same underlying logical structure.
So if the AI can debug Python, it can theoretically debug a trade settlement.
That was the core hypothesis. And the sources say Argenti was actually surprised by the result.
Surprised how, it failed or it hallucinated a bunch of numbers.
No, surprised at how uniquely well Claude, that's Anthropic's specific model, handled the messy reality of enterprise accounting. We aren't talking about clean, perfectly formatted spreadsheets here. We are talking about parsing massive, ugly PDF documents, applying incredibly complex international rules, and flagging exceptions.
Okay, I want to get a bit technical for a second.
Sure.
Because I think when most people hear AI, they immediately imagine ChatGPT.
The standard chat interface.
Exactly. You type in a box, it gives you an answer, you copy and paste it. Is that what these digital coworkers are doing at Goldman? Just answering questions for a human?
No. And that is the biggest misconception we really need to clear up right now. If you think this is a chatbot, you are missing both the threat and the opportunity entirely.
Okay, clarify that.
These agents sit in what we call the workflow layer.
The workflow layer. Break that down for us. What does that actually look like architecturally?
Okay, imagine you have your systems of record. These are the giant legacy databases where the money and the official data actually live, the ledgers.
Like the digital vault.
Exactly, that's the vault. Now, you never, ever let the AI directly mess with the vault numbers blindly.
Right, because that is how you accidentally lose $1 billion on a hallucination.
Exactly, you need safeguards. But usually, historically, you have a human standing outside that vault.
The analyst.
Right. The human opens a file, reads a massive PDF, logs into another system, checks a box, writes up a report, and then submits it.
That's the daily grind, the grunt work.
The investigation phase. What Goldman and Anthropic built is an agentic layer.
Agentic layer.
Think of the large language model, the core AI, as a brain in a jar. It is brilliant, it has read everything, but it has no hands.
It can't touch anything.
It can't click, it can't scroll, it can't log into a proprietary banking portal.
It is pure thought, no action.
Exactly. But Goldman and Anthropic built the hands.
They gave it tools.
They gave the AI a secure browser to read the internal, highly confidential documents. They gave it write access to the compliance drafting tool. They gave it a memory module to recall what it did 5 minutes ago.
So when we say workflow layer, we aren't talking about a helpful little chatbot window off to the side of your screen?
Not at all. We are talking about custom software that has the permission and the ability to essentially impersonate a human employee's digital actions.
Wow.
It takes the messy file from the client, reviews it, extracts all the relevant entities, checks the complex ownership structures against the official database, triggers the necessary compliance checks, and this is the absolute key. It produces drafts and structured data for a human approval.
It actually builds the file.
It builds the file. It does not just chat with you about the file.
Yeah.
It fundamentally does the work.
That is a massive difference. That is the difference between asking a colleague for a piece of advice and having an incredibly fast intern do all the prep work for you before you even arrive at the office.
Exactly. And that shift from chat to action is what leads us to the corporate translation game.
I love this part.
Because Goldman didn't come out in their press release and say, hey, everyone, we built a robot intern that never sleeps.
No, they used very specific, very polite corporate language.
Highly curated phrasing.
Decoding corporate speak is basically a vital survival skill at this point.
It really is. Corporate press releases are written in a very specific dialect. It's designed to keep investors incredibly happy and keep the employees, let's say, complacent.
Calm is a very generous way to put it.
Fair enough.
Okay, I want to play a little game with this. I will give you the polite corporate phrase that we pulled from the Goldman announcement, and you tell me what it actually means for the person listening to this deep dive right now, the real talk translation.
Let's do it. I'm ready.
Term number 1, digital coworker.
It sounds so friendly, right? Like a buddy who sits in the cubicle next to you and offers you a donut on Friday?
It sounds incredibly friendly. It sounds additive. The official corporate definition is essentially a tool to help you be more productive and happier at work.
But what is the real definition? What does it actually mean for the workflow?
The real definition is much sharper. A digital coworker is a system that collapses the time to first draft from hours down to minutes.
Collapses is a really strong word, but it's accurate. Think about the basic physics of your workday. If it used to take you 4 solid hours to gather the data, read the policy, and write up the preliminary compliance report, and now this agent does that entire sequence in 3 minutes.
The rhythm of your entire day has just fundamentally changed.
Yes. You aren't working with it in the sense of a creative collaboration. You are managing its output.
You become a manager of a machine.
Precisely. And if you used to spend 80% of your day doing the drafting and 20% doing the reviewing, that ratio flips completely. Now you spend 100% of your day reviewing.
Which honestly sounds easier on paper, but is it?
We will definitely get to that because the cognitive load of that is huge.
Yeah.
But let's do the next term.
Okay, term number 2. This one came directly from Goldman CEO David Solomon. He announced a plan to reorganize around generative AI, and the specific phrase he used was constrain headcount growth.
Ah, yes. The absolute classic. Constrain headcount growth. It sounds so prudent and responsible.
Right, fiscal responsibility. We're just tightening the belt a little bit.
It certainly doesn't say, we are going to fire people.
No, it doesn't say fire at all.
But here is the real translation.
Yeah.
It means when you leave the company, they are not replacing you.
The empty chair stays empty.
Or rather, the agent gets your desk. It is a slow-motion reduction of the human element. It is shrinking the future workforce without the bad PR of mass layoffs today.
So if a team of 10 people has 2 people naturally quit or retire?
Right. And the AI has made the remaining 8 people 20% more efficient.
Then you literally don't need to hire those 2 people back to maintain the same output.
Exactly. So it is attrition replacement. The AI is the backfill. And for anyone trying to get into the industry right now, recent graduates, junior analysts, that door just got significantly heavier to push open.
That is a chilling thought for the entry-level job market. The junior reps are basically competing against an agent that costs pennies an hour.
It forces juniors to add value much higher up the chain, much faster.
Okay, term number 3. This is one we hear everywhere in AI ethics discussions, but Goldman really leaned on it heavily to reassure the regulators. Human in the loop.
The ultimate safety net phrase.
Right. The corporate definition is humans make the high-stakes decisions, which makes us feel very important. We are still the captains of the ship. The AI is just the engine room.
But you have to look at the daily mechanics of it. If the AI is doing all the research, all the synthesis, and all the initial drafting, the human in the loop stops doing the core work.
And they just start auditing the work.
Exactly. You become a teacher grading papers all day long.
You become an auditor.
And that is a fundamentally different job description. It actually uses a totally different part of your brain. Instead of the creative act of synthesis taking point A and point B and building point C, you are permanently stuck in the critical mode of error checking.
Is this true? Is this citation correct? Did it hallucinate this number?
And frankly, that is incredibly exhausting. There's a well-documented psychological phenomenon called vigilance decrement.
Vigilance decrement.
Yes. If you stare at mostly correct automated work for 9 hours a day, your brain naturally stops paying as much attention. You are going to miss the one fatal error that pops up in the 10th hour because you've been lulled into a false sense of security.
Because the machine has been right 99 times in a row.
Exactly. And it changes liability entirely, doesn't it?
Mm.
If you sign off on the AI's work, it is your human name on the official line.
Not Anthropic's name, not Claude's name.
Your name. The loop is essentially a noose of responsibility. You are now personally responsible for the output of a machine that literally thinks faster than you.
You have to be smarter than the tool you are using, or you will eventually sign off on a hallucination that costs the bank a massive fine.
That is exactly the risk.
It's sobering, really. But let's zoom out for a second. Why are we focusing so heavily on Goldman Sachs specifically here?
Yeah.
Companies announce big tech partnerships every single day.
They do.
JP Morgan partners with whoever. Morgan Stanley buys this startup. Why is this specific one the ultimate warning signal?
Because of a concept called the permission structure.
Permission structure. Explain that.
Think about the global corporate hierarchy. Who is the most risk-averse, heavily regulated, compliance-obsessed entity on the planet?
I mean, a major global bank like Goldman? Maybe a nuclear power plant?
Right. Goldman is right at the top of that list. If a trendy tech startup says, hey, we are using AI agents to manage all our core finances.
Nobody really cares. They are a startup. They are supposed to move fast and break things.
Exactly. But Goldman Sachs, they do not break things. They are the absolute gold standard for corporate risk management.
So if they do it,
If Goldman says, look, we have tested this, we embedded the engineers, we did the extensive red teaming, and we have decided it is safe enough to let Claude handle your customer reviews.
which is incredibly sensitive regulatory stuff.
Highly sensitive. If they say that, then every other board of directors in the world suddenly has permission to do the exact same thing.
The easy excuse of, well, it's just too risky for our data, that just evaporated overnight.
Exactly. Goldman Sachs just became the reference customer. Every single sales rep at Anthropic, and frankly, every sales rep at their competitors, is going to put the Goldman logo on slide 1 of their pitch deck.
If it's safe enough for Goldman Sachs, it is definitely safe enough for your regional mid-size insurance company.
And that dynamic is what triggers what the source material calls the pressure cascade.
Jet fresher cascade. I want to walk through this very specifically because I think listeners really need to hear what is happening in the rooms right above them in the corporate org chart.
Let's do it. Let's role play how this actually plays out.
Okay, I love a good role play. Where does it start?
It starts at the very top, the boardroom. I will be the demanding board member, and you be the CEO.
Okay, I am the CEO.
So the board member reads the Financial Times over the weekend, sees the huge Goldman story. On Monday morning, I turn to you and say, Goldman is publicly reporting massive efficiency gains in compliance processing using these new agents. Why aren't we seeing those margins? Why is our operational headcount still growing year over year?
Well, we are taking a very cautious approach to generative AI. We want to ensure total data safety before we deploy.
And my response is, Goldman Sachs, literally the most regulated bank in the world, figured out the safety protocols. Are you telling me our internal IT team knows something that Goldman doesn't? Fix it.
Wow. Okay, message received. Now I am the CEO, and I am terrified of losing my end-of-year bonus. So I immediately call my chief technology officer,
The CTO.
and I say, get me a solution exactly like this. I do not care how. Just show me an AI strategy on paper that demonstrably cuts our operational costs by next quarter.
And the CTO, who's now sweating, calls the VP of Operations and says, find budget cuts or efficiency boosts using these agent systems. We have a mandate to deploy something in Q3.
And eventually, that massive boulder rolls all the way down and lands squarely on the desk of the mid-level team lead.
The poor team lead.
Right. The person managing 40 people doing manual document review is suddenly under massive, intense pressure to automate those exact workflows purely because Goldman did it.
And that team lead probably does not have Goldman's endless budget.
No.
Nor do they have a team of elite Anthropic engineers embedded in their department for 6 months.
They just have the mandate from above. Here's a corporate subscription to Copilot or ChatGPT Enterprise. Figure it out by Friday.
That is the cascade. It rolls rapidly downhill,
No.
gaining speed and completely losing nuance along the way.
And the market absolutely sees this coming. Let's loop back to that $285 billion sell-off we started the deep dive with, because now the why of that is really starting to make sense.
This is exactly where all the dots connect. Why did investors suddenly dump massive software stocks? Why dump Salesforce? Why dump Adobe?
I initially assumed it was just a general fear that AI coding would make their proprietary software easier to copy or make it buggy.
No, it is much more existential than that.
Hmm.
It comes down to the fundamental unit of corporate value. For the last 20 years, the dominant business model for business software has been seat-based SaaS.
Software as a service, meaning you pay per human user.
Exactly. You hire a human, you buy a software seat for that human. Revenue equals headcount. If your company grows from 50 employees to 100 employees, Salesforce automatically makes twice as much money.
Right. 50 human employees, 50 paid subscriptions.
But if you start deploying digital coworkers, AI agents, to do the bulk of the work,
Agents do not need seats.
or at least they do not need the same kind of highly profitable seats, an agent does not have human eyes, it does not need a beautiful graphical user interface, it does not need colorful buttons or dashboards.
It just hits the back-end API directly.
Exactly. So if Goldman replaces the manual workload of 100 humans with one centralized agent system,
Salesforce doesn't sell 100 high-margin subscriptions anymore.
they might sell 0. Or they sell one bulk API access token, which costs a tiny fraction of the retail price.
So the guaranteed revenue model for the entire enterprise software industry is fundamentally threatened.
The market is pricing in the replacement of interactive tools with autonomous agents. Think about it. Why buy a complex, expensive tool for a human to learn and use when you can just hire a digital agent to do the finished job directly?
That is a massive shift in where the value lies. It is moving from the tool maker, the software company, directly to the intelligence provider, the AI model company.
Which is exactly why the market panicked and sold off. They realized that software as a service inherently assumes a human is sitting there doing the service. If the human leaves the desk, the whole SaaS math breaks down.
It's like investing billions in a chain of hammer factories right before someone invents a fully autonomous robot carpenter.
That is the perfect analogy. You don't care about buying a better hammer anymore. You just care about getting the finished cabinet. The market realized it's been aggressively investing in hammers for a decade.
Now, speaking of hammers and carpenters, we have been talking about this almost entirely from the perspective of the giant enterprise.
The empire, essentially.
Right. But our source material draws a really fascinating contrast between two distinct personas in this new world. The firefighter inside the massive enterprise and the tinkerer.
The clean hands versus the tinkerer. I love this comparison because it really highlights where the actual on-the-ground innovation is happening right now.
Break down those two personas for us. Who are they?
The firefighter is your classic enterprise IT or security professional. They are just trying to keep the lights on, keep the proprietary data safe, and follow a million compliance rules.
Right. They are putting out fires.
Their hands are completely tied by corporate policy. They are usually forced to use the heavily approved, highly sanitized corporate AI system, which is often neutered for safety reasons.
And who is the tinkerer?
The tinkerer is the independent builder. They are sitting at home with a high-end gaming PC. Maybe they have a $20 a month API subscription. They are experimenting at night outside of corporate firewalls.
And the really fascinating thing the source material points out is that the brain is exactly the same in both scenarios.
This is the massive democratization of intelligence we are witnessing. The brain, in this specific case, Anthropic's Claude model, is the exact same underlying intelligence. Whether it is running deep inside Goldman's fortress with 6 months of custom infrastructure,
Or running on a guy's personal gaming rig in his basement in Ohio.
it is the exact same core logic, the same baseline reasoning capability.
But let's talk actual hardware specs for a minute. When we say a gaming PC, we aren't talking about a 5-year-old laptop you bought at Best Buy.
No, let's be realistic for the technical folks listening. We are talking about a serious rig. Maybe 2 high-end consumer graphics cards like NVIDIA 4090s bridged together.
That is a serious consumer setup. That's a few $1,000s just in graphics cards.
It is an investment. But for maybe $4,000 or $5,000 total, that tinkerer in the basement can run a quantized version of a powerful open model like Llama 3 or a distilled version of Claude entirely locally.
Explain the word quantized for us, because that comes up a lot.
Quantizing basically means mathematically compressing the massive AI model so it physically fits onto smaller, cheaper hardware without losing too much of its core intelligence.
It shrinks the file size.
Exactly. So the tinkerer can run this highly capable AI completely offline.
Without any internet connection at all.
None.
Yeah.
0 data ever leaves the room.
So the irony here is that The firefighter at the giant bank is heavily restricted by massive compliance rules and deep fear of accidental data leaks to the cloud, while the tinker is actually running much faster, much looser experiments on their own personal hardware because they have total privacy.
The innovation gap right now is actually favoring the amateur. The amateur can iterate 5 times faster because they don't have a legal department reviewing every single prompt they write.
But Goldman has something that the tinker does not have. They have auditability.
Ah, yes. The absolute magic word in enterprise software. Auditability.
Why did Goldman choose Anthropic over OpenAI or Google for this specific project? I mean, was it just raw intelligence? Was Claude just smarter?
No, it is not just about raw smarts. If you are writing a poetry book, you want the most creative, unhinged model.
Right.
But if you are reconciling billion-dollar trade accounts for the SEC, you want the absolute most auditable model.
Explain that. Because if the AI makes a critical mistake, Goldman can't just throw their hands up and say, oops, the black box algorithm did it. We don't know why.
Exactly. The regulators, the SEC, the internal auditors, they absolutely demand to see the trail of breadcrumbs. The sources highlight that Claude is specifically trained to proactively surface its own uncertainty and to provide concrete source attribution.
Source attribution, meaning what?
It explicitly cites its sources. It uses a popular architectural technique called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation.
ARIG, we hear that acronym thrown around constantly. How does it actually work in this specific compliance context?
Imagine the AI is taking a massive open book test. The retrieval part is the system actively searching the giant policy manual and finding the one relevant page.
Finding the exact rule.
Right. The generation part is the AI writing the final answer based strictly and exclusively on the text found on that specific page.
And then citing the page number so a human can verify it.
Exactly. The output isn't just, this transaction is suspicious. The output is, I am flagging this specific transaction because of paragraph 4, section B of the internal compliance document you provided me.
Which instantly creates a perfect audit trail.
Which is the absolute holy grail for any compliance department. Without that clear citation, the AI is basically just a dangerous toy. With the citation, it becomes an enterprise-grade tool. It turns the AI from a creative fiction writer into a highly diligent legal researcher.
And that is ultimately why Anthropic won the Goldman contract. It wasn't about being the flashiest model. It was about being accountable.
Exactly. Accountability wins the enterprise market every single time.
But this brings us to a really major point of friction that the sources highlight. We currently have this incredible speed of thought technology, but we're working inside speed of 2015 organizations.
The clash of speeds. This is a massive theme in the AI, frankly, context. The raw technology allows an individual employee to literally solve a massive data problem in minutes.
Hey, AI, please analyze this massive spreadsheet, cross-reference it with the policy, and find all the hidden errors. Done in 30 seconds.
Right. The computation takes seconds. But the internal governance review process, required to just allow you to use that specific tool in the first place, takes 6 weeks.
Or 6 months. Or frankly, it just gets a hard no forever.
That tension creates an incredibly weird dynamic right now. You have thousands of employees who know perfectly well they could do their job 10 times faster.
Because maybe they're tinkerers at home on the weekends.
Exactly. They know the capability exists. But corporate policy explicitly prevents them from using those skills at their actual desk.
It is like owning a literal Ferrari but being permanently stuck driving in a school zone.
And this friction is actually forcing a massive mindset shift for the compliance officers themselves. Because eventually the dam is going to break. The tools will get approved because the efficiency gains are too big to ignore. And when they do get approved, the entire job of compliance changes fundamentally.
How so? Walk me through the before and after.
The old way of doing compliance was heavily focused on auditing the final document. You look at the final report, you double-check the math, you look for typos, and you sign off.
Right. Looks good to me. The end product is clean.
The new way is entirely about auditing the reasoning chain. Since human beings are now primarily reviewing AI-generated drafts, the major risk is no longer a simple typo or a misplaced comma. The risk is a logical hallucination.
Meaning the AI sounds incredibly confident and professional about a conclusion that is completely logically wrong.
Exactly. So the human reviewer desperately needs to be better at spotting complex logic errors than basic spelling errors. They need to deeply understand how the AI arrived at the answer, not just look at the final answer itself.
That genuinely sounds much harder than the old way.
It is fundamentally harder. It requires a much deeper, more structural understanding of the rules.
Yeah.
You absolutely cannot just operate on mental autopilot anymore. If the AI is doing all the basic grunt work, you have to do the high-level thinking work.
So we have talked a lot about the high-level corporate strategy. We've talked about the market signals, the sell-offs, and the internal fiction. But the core mission of this deep dive is to be highly practical for you, the listener. We want you to be prepared for this, not just informed about it.
Don't just be scared, be prepared. That is the core motto of the source material.
The AI Frankly material suggests a very specific lab approach, meaning treat your current desk like a laboratory. And they outline a very specific practical exercise to build these skills.
This is a fantastic exercise because you can literally do it this weekend. You do not need permission from your boss or the IT department to try this on publicly available data.
Okay, walk us through it. What is step one?
Step one is securing the input. You need to find a dense, complex compliance document. Maybe it is a public regulatory guideline from the SEC or a massive commercial insurance policy, or honestly, just a really long, boring software terms of service agreement.
Something incredibly thick and full of conditional rules, ideally something that usually makes your eyes glaze over on page 2.
Exactly. Step two is the prompt. You upload that heavy document to a modern AI tool. Claude is great for this, since that's what Goldman used. But others like ChatGPT Plus will work too. Now here is the trick. Do not just ask it, hey, summarize this document for me.
Because that is the rookie mistake everyone makes.
It's lazy prompting, and it gives you lazy results. You need to use what is called chain of thought prompting.
Explain that for the listeners. How do I actually type that out in the box?
You literally type out the explicit sequential steps you want the AI to take. You say, I want you to meticulously process this document. Step 1, read the entire text and extract all formal definitions. Step 2, identify the 3 most common exception scenarios that would require human judgment. Step 3, clearly flag the sections that are purely deterministic and can be fully automated.
You are giving it a strict workflow, not just asking a single question.
Exactly. You act like a manager delegating a complex task. And step 4 is the absolute most important part. You type, cite the exact clause and page number for every single claim you make. Create a structured table with your finding in column A and the direct verbatim source text in column B.
Don't just tell me the answer. Show me exactly where you found it.
Make the model show its mathematical work.
Okay, so we run that advanced prompt. What is step 3?
Step 3 is the timer. Compare the literal time it took the AI to do that complex multi-step analysis against the time it would take a bright, freshly hired college graduate to just read the raw document once.
Not even to fully analyze it, just to physically read it cover to cover.
Just to read it. And what you will find, consistently, is that the AI has completely finished the deep analysis, cited all of its sources perfectly, and formatted the final table before the human has even finished reading page 3.
And that gap, that massive discrepancy in time.
That gap is the business case. That gap is exactly what Goldman Sachs just successfully demonstrated to Wall Street. That time gap is where the billions of dollars are hiding.
And frankly, it is also the direct threat to the person listening who refuses to learn how to use these tools.
Precisely. If you are the stubbornly traditional analyst who insists on reading page by page with a yellow highlighter while your competitor or your digital coworker is extracting the exact same insights in 4 seconds, you are fighting a battle you simply cannot win.
But the whole exercise isn't purely just about raw speed, is it? It is also about verifying the quality of the output.
Yes, it's about deeply understanding the tool's actual limitations and strengths. When you see the AI successfully find a subtle legal ambiguity that you completely missed on your first read, you have this light bulb moment. You realize, oh, this isn't just a really fast typewriter. This is a genuine reasoning engine.
It completely changes how you respect the capability of the tool.
And more importantly, it changes how you see your own value in the marketplace. Your market value is no longer your ability to read fast or memorize rules. Your value is your ability to decide what corporate action to take based on the ambiguity the AI just found for you.
That is the human-in-the-loop concept done right. You are acting as the judge, not the file clerk.
Exactly. That is the necessary evolution of the knowledge worker.
Let's connect this all back to the tinkerer idea we discussed earlier. If I take the time to do this specific exercise at home on my personal laptop on a Sunday afternoon, what have I actually gained? Because I am not Goldman Sachs. I don't have that job yet.
You have gained the fundamental muscle memory of the future workflow. When your current company finally catches up to reality, when that pressure cascade hits your VP and they scramble to immediately buy this exact technology, you will not be the one sitting there freaking out.
You will be the one calmly raising your hand saying, oh yeah, I know exactly how to prompt for exception handling and source attribution. I've been doing it at home for 6 months.
Exactly. You instantly become the pilot of the new system rather than the passenger. And in an economic shift this massive, you absolutely do not want to be a passenger.
And that is really the ultimate goal here. We aren't sitting here saying the sci-fi robots are coming to forcefully take everyone's job tomorrow morning, but we are saying the fundamental nature of the daily job is shifting rapidly under our feet right now.
The $285 billion market sell-off tells you the smart money knows it. The Goldman deal tells you the top executives know it. The only remaining question is, do you know it?
So let's wrap this all up. What is the final verdict here?
The verdict is that this specific story is not hype. We talk a lot in this space about AI hype, the bubble bursting, all of that. But this Goldman Anthropic story is entirely about the receipts.
Proof of work.
Goldman proved that the concept actually works at massive enterprise scale in arguably the most difficult regulated environment possible. They proved it can be perfectly compliant, it can be fully audited, and it saves massive amounts of time.
And so the smart move for our listener right now.
Start aggressively learning how these AI tools actually reason today. Do not wait for the mandatory corporate training seminar next year. By the time HR organizes a training seminar, the proactive early adopters will have already secured all the best management positions.
Be the person who strategically manages the digital coworker, not the manual laborer the coworker ultimately replaces.
That is genuinely the best career insurance policy you can buy right now.
Absolutely. If you want to dig even deeper into the source material we use today, and I highly recommend you do because the AI Frankly team goes into even more granular technical detail about the specific hardware setups and the exact prompts they use, you can find the full comprehensive article and all the show notes at afrankly.substack.com.
They really do treat it like a serious research lab. It is incredibly refreshing in a space full of hype.
And you should definitely subscribe to AI Frankly on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. They are putting out this kind of deep, no-nonsense analysis very regularly.
And please leave a comment on those platforms. Tell us or tell them what you specifically want covered next. What exact part of your daily job are you worried about automating? What new AI tool are you currently struggling to figure out?
We really love hearing those specific real-world examples from you all. It totally helps us know where to shine the light next.
Absolutely. It drives the whole conversation.
Well, before we go, I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to just mull over. We've talked entirely about human in the loop today. But what happens when the workflow layer advances so much that two different corporate agents say, a Goldman compliance agent and a JP Morgan settlement agent start actively negotiating with each other directly, completely outside of human review? That is where this is ultimately heading next, and that changes the math all over again.
A fascinating and slightly terrifying thought to end on.
So as we sign off, just remember the core lesson from the Goldman deal. The market is moving fast, the technology is completely ready, the enterprise plumbing is actively being built right now.
It is time to get your hands dirty.
AI, frankly.
Yeah.
Learn the tools before the tools learn your job.